Hi everyone, I'm Michelle Smallman and welcome to this week's edition of Two Guys, Three Questions. Joining me this week, co-host of The Fast Lane and World Series champion Chris Duncan, and Anthony Stalter, the producer of The Fast Lane. Thanks so much for your time, guys. All right, question number one. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch had a great water cooler question the other day and I really wanted to get you guys' take on it. With Albert Pujols, Tony La Russa, and Dave Duncan gone, there really is no defining face of St. Louis sports. What do you guys think? Who reps the Loon nationally? Dunc, I know you guys talked about this on the Fast Lane. What do you think?
I definitely don't think it's Steven Jackson. I don't think you can put somebody from a 2-14 team as the face of St. Louis. I think there's too many heroes from October last year with the St. Louis Cardinals. I think you could pick a number of people from the Cardinals team. I think you could pick Chris Carpenter for what he did in October. He was an absolute hero. He pitched amazingly down the stretch, and there's no doubt that they probably wouldn't have won the World Series without him. Former Cy Young winner, and he's accomplished a lot over the years in St. Louis. I think definitely David Freese has got to be a candidate after what he did in October. That Game 6 is probably the best game we'll ever see, hands down, in our lifetime. And I think Adam Wainwright, despite not pitching last year, for what he did in 2006, getting the final out in the NLCS and getting the final out in the World Series, I think you pick between one of those three guys and you can't go wrong.
Thanks, Dunc. Anthony, what do you think? Who is the face of St. Louis sports?
Well, I think locally, if you're from St. Louis and you're a St. Louis sports fan, it's understandable that somebody says Yadi Molina or David Freese. You want to be represented by winners, and the Cardinals are winners. They've won 2 titles in the last 6 years compared to the Rams, who haven't won in 12 years. So locally, yes, I understand why somebody would say those 2 names, but nationally, I don't think people know how good Yadi Molina is. If you go out on the East Coast and you ask somebody, hey, who's the best catcher in baseball, they may say Joe Mauer. If you go west, they may say Buster Posey, whether that's just or unjust. So nationally, given how popular the NFL has become, especially with fantasy football, I would have to go with Sam Bradford or Steven Jackson. Even if it's unfair locally here, that's the way I think a lot of people would answer that question if you said, hey, off the top of your head, who represents St. Louis sports?
Thanks, Anthony. All right, guys, question number 2. Johan Santana pitched a gem of a game against the Cardinals in New York and logged the first no-hitter in Mets history, some say with an asterisk. Carlos Beltran was robbed of a hit that should have broken up the no-no due to a bad call from an umpire. After what happened with Johan Santana in New York, do you think Major League Baseball should implement a replay system? Anthony, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. There's a computer that can tell me step by step how to get to New Mexico, but we can't figure out, how to best implement it in baseball. I don't agree that it takes up time from the game, that it makes the game slower, because when Mike Matheny goes out to argue with the umpire for 10 minutes, during that time, you can have the umpire buzz down and say, hey, you got the call wrong. The entire idea behind this is just to get the call right. That's what's most important at the end of the day. So yeah, to me, you have to implement instant replay. And I don't buy the fact where some people says, well, hey, this doesn't happen a lot. What happened to Armando Galarraga doesn't happen a lot. What happened with Carlos Beltran and Johan Santana, that doesn't happen a lot. So we'll just leave the human element into the game. The fact that we're talking about this at all, the fact that it happened at all, is reason enough that baseball should implement instant replay.
Thanks, Anthony. Dunc, you're a former player. Are you in favor of a replay system in baseball?
I've actually always thought they should implement a replay system, not just after what happened in New York, but I've seen so many missed calls over the years, over and over again, and I don't think it's fair to the umpires that all the fans at home could be watching on their high definition television, and they know within seconds when that guy's missed a call, but they don't get to use the technology to fix it. It doesn't make sense. And everyone that argues that it would slow the game down, you're completely wrong, because I'm sick and tired of seeing managers and coaches go out there and argue for 10, 15 minutes, and they could have got the call right with the little umpire up in the booth within seconds. So I think eventually baseball will realize that they're missing out on the advantages of technology, and I think it's only fair to the umpires that they find a way to help these guys out, put some umpires in a luxury box, in a suite, up in a booth, let them have a big screen TV, and within seconds, via headset, they can relay down to the umpires whether or not they missed the call or got it right, and within seconds the game resumes. No ifs, ands, or buts. Definitely, I think that they should implement robot umpires.
Thanks, Dunc. Okay, guys, final question. I'll Have Another is on the cusp of thoroughbred immortality. If he can win Saturday's Belmont Stakes, he will be the first horse since affirmed in 1978 to sweep the sport's Triple Crown. I'll Have Another's trainer, Doug O'Neill, is facing a 45-day suspension in July for numerous drug and medication violations. If I'll Have Another does win the Triple Crown, will this feat be tainted in any way? Dunc, what do you think?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I think it's probably tainted a little bit, but I would look at it just like I'd look at somebody like Barry Bonds, who broke a record, hit all those home runs, and then we later find out he was on steroids. I think you have to take it into consideration, and maybe this could be a situation where you use an asterisk.
Thanks, Dunc. Anthony, what's your take on this?
No, it wouldn't be tainted because we don't have proof that Doug O'Neill cheated with this specific horse in these specific races. We can speculate because he did it in 2010 that yes, okay, he did it again, but at the end of the day, that's just speculation. So until there is burden of proof that he cheated with I'll Have Another in these two races, no, it won't be tainted. And either way, I think honestly, it's going to wind up, this conversation is going to wind up being a moot point. You have I'll Have Another who raced in the Kentucky Derby and he raced in the Preakness Stakes. There's a reason why we haven't seen a Triple Crown winner since 1978. If you look at some of the other contenders in this race, Dullahan and Union Rags, they're racing on fresh legs because they haven't gone since Churchill Downs at Kentucky Derby. So again, I think at the end of the day, this conversation might be moot.
Thanks, Anthony, and thanks again, Dunc. I really appreciate you guys' time. That's all for this week's edition of Two Guys, Three Questions. You can check us out right here again next week at 101sports.com.